It's just so many stories and so many heroes. Among the veterans attending the USS Enterprise inactivation ceremony will be crew members from the 1969 fire. Now together they survived a fire that nearly sank the ship, and 5 of them sat down with investigator Mike Mather to share their story.
When the Enterprise was built a half-century ago, it was the world's mightiest warship. Powered by nuclear reactors and crewed by youngsters, it was the pride of the modern Navy. And to many who have returned this weekend for her farewell, it was, in every sense, a home.
It's in my heart to the day I die.
A home they nearly lost. One day in January 1969.
Disaster.
These are the men who saved the Enterprise in her darkest hour.
Without us, that ship would not be sitting there now.
They are the fire survivors. So you're on your way to bed?
Well, I rolled in.
Closed your eyes?
No, got blown out of my bunk.
Hot exhaust from a machine on the deck detonated a jet's missile.
I heard a big explosion. I was on a ladder, turned aft, and there was the ball of fire.
Jet fuel had run down into compartments. You could hear men screaming to death down there.
I can see missiles shooting across the flight deck out in front of the ship.
I seen bodies disintegrate in front of me.
Then hot bullets started shooting. Shrapnel raked the sailors.
As I was climbing up the ladders, there were all these flight deck personnel were running in, screaming and yelling and all bloody and wet.
I had to make my way down to the flight deck, and when I went through the island, there was bodies there.
The fuel-fed inferno grew and cooked the 500-pound bombs strapped to the burning jets. One by one, the bombs exploded.
When the bombs went off, the flight deck just shook. You could feel it, like a tremor.
Deck cameras captured it all, but without the sound of the ship-shaking explosions. As the fire grew and the bombs blasted, it became clear that the mighty Enterprise was in peril.
You got 2.5-inch steel was just ripped apart like it was paper.
I thought we were finished.
In a cruel blow, the explosions, the fire, and the shrapnel cut many of the firefighting hoses.
The fire wasn't going out, it was escalating.
Other Navy ships pulled alongside where sailors tried to do something they weren't trained to do. They straddled the big guns while holding fire hoses and arced water onto the much taller carrier.
That guy saved our bacon, that's for sure. Because we did not have the capacity to put those flames out alone.
The sailors saved the Enterprise. Barely. The official toll is 28 sailors dead, although these men say the real count was in the hundreds. For years, many of the fire survivors kept the horrors of what happened deep inside, and like the fire itself, it consumed them. Alex Vinkoff says he drank too much. Counselors encouraged him to open up.
It's hard for me to sit here and do this, but I need to do it.
And over the years, they found the perfect people to listen, each other. The fire survivors reunite regularly to talk about the good times and the bad with the only men who truly understand.
Sitting in front of you is not easy. I'm getting better, but I'll never heal.
As awful as it was, the fire forged bonds that have lasted a lifetime.
The team together, the brothers, I mean, you're tighter than family. Any one of us in trouble, we're there for each other.
These men say they've had other Navy assignments, served on other ships, but nothing gave them the feeling of family they had on the Enterprise. And now it is time to say goodbye. They are together once again to bid farewell to a ship that made them the men they are. Is it hard to let it go?
It is. Yeah, it's sad for me.
You go to a funeral to celebrate life, really. So I'm coming here to celebrate the life of the Enterprise and put her to rest also.
The only thing I could say, I could salute it and say rest in peace. I enjoyed my duty with you.
Now, these veterans, a lot of them want the ship to be saved as a museum, but the Navy says that would just be too expensive. The Enterprise will be towed and then scrapped. Now, the veterans are divided about what to do with the name Enterprise. There have been 8 ships named Enterprise. Some say that legacy should continue, but others say this is just too tough an act to follow. They should let the name rest in peace as well.
Kind of like retiring the name.
That's exactly right.
You know, I guess when you watch these, you almost think of the saying, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, because the experiences these men had on this ship, just polar opposites from the amazing memories that they had, and then that dreadful day.
Yeah, very dark days, but also times when these kids were 18, 19, 20, so they grew up fast. And those bonds they forged then, 40, 45 years later, are still very tight.
Thanks for sharing those stories, Mike. And the Enterprise inactivation ceremony is tomorrow, and we will be streaming it on WTKR.com.